kind of a soft kill because we're not going to be able to really connect it 5 years down the line, all the cancers, all the things that happen. Until and unless we stop ignoring all this corruption, we'll get more of the same. And now also I'd like to note the Senate Bill 1867, where we really have been totally now sold out. We can be picked up at any time. We can be an enemy combatant. Now the whole world is, we got war on the whole planet. And so if they want to pick you up, you can be picked up without any recourse. You can be murdered. Of course, they're doing that now, but they went the extra step by really making the American people the enemy everywhere. And so when we start thinking about what's going on, and we put Fukushima, you got the ongoing BP Gulf massacre, we have cancers are rapidly escalating. You look at autism also with vaccinations, you know, and now we have, though, people are waking up. This Occupy spirit is really happening, and I'm hoping we can keep this momentum going by realizing we are being affected, and we need to go local. I'm going to start getting very involved here locally with the Agenda 21. They want to blow up 4 dams here in Oregon. They're nuking us all. They are taking away our ability to have good, healthy food, you know, but people are waking up, and in the UK, 2 million people went on strike, 30 different unions. You know, people in Portugal, people in Greece, people all over the world are waking up to this. And so the more we learn, the more important it is for us to understand that our lives, our future, our children, all of that is going to be at stake unless we can step up and protect ourselves from the ridiculous legal conquest we're all under.
Well, and you couldn't be more right when you say legal conquest. I'm sorry, Christina, did I interrupt you?
No.
Okay. Well, jump on in. I mean, you know, if you have a comment you want to add that either has to do with radiation or not, feel free to just jump in. But Karen, you couldn't be more right. I mean, you know, and we've been talking about that this week. Just the ongoing events that seem to be one compounding on top of another, and you know, it's not only are they compounding new events, we're compounding on top of already occurred events such as Fukushima, such as the Gulf oil crisis, such as the Arab Spring, such as the decimation that we've unleashed in North Africa. I mean, all these things seem to be coming at a head at once, or at least the velocity of events seems to be increasing. I'm like you. I hold out hope. I hold out hope that there's enough people waking up, regardless if they're in the United We Strike, or if they're in the Tea Party, or if they're in the Occupy movement. Now, I know after talking to you today, you just kind of touched the tip of the iceberg there a little bit. You're planning on, we're not going to do a United We Strike this month, in the month of December. And you're concentrating on doing exactly what in the upcoming year?
Well, what I'm going to do is I'd like this to be a part-time, non-paying job, but I also really do want to start going local, because when you look around, we had some great guests on this last marathon, and we are taking December off, but this is also a call out to people who are interested in helping us build United We Strike. We're looking for producers. We don't need to have like a full-on radio station right now, but what we'd like to do is really give people a voice from all around the world. So we need producers, and we are going to be getting into some different programming just to let people know the more that we can talk to each other and break down the barriers that divide us, because we've been trained to think that we're different, the more we see we're all facing these same issues, and we do need to get into it. I'm going to be going local, because if you have property, folks, they're coming after it. They're coming after our water, and they're coming after our land and our children and our future. But if we educate ourselves, now freedomadvocates.org is a real good one. Also defendruralamerica.com. They want to blow up 4 dams here, which ultimately they're talking about it being overfished. But when you really get into it, the fish weren't native to the part of the land where they're talking about blowing it up. But anyway, the fish have been brought in there, and they won't have water for fires. They won't have water for people, because ultimately, when they dry all this up, they are going to be in charge of it. And we've got to really start coming together and protecting ourselves locally and saying, no, we won't do it. Sorry,
Yeah,
somebody came up and we got company here. Are you still there?
Yeah, I'm here. Is that Christina? You had company, Christina?
Okay, no. Yeah, there's somebody knocking on the door there.
Uh-oh, you're in trouble now.
No, it's all right. But it's the police. I saw earlier, too, where it said that no strikes had ever done anything. Well, that's wrong. Strikes do work. And the only time strikes get violent is when government goes in, which is what happened with Wall Street anyway. It's not the protesters that are violent, it's the police. We need to not give them a target. We need to really get self-sufficient off the grid and tell them to screw off. We're not going to go along with it. We're going to pull out and film our own communities and turn around and take care of the people locally who are selling us out to Agenda 21. Those people who are profiting off of us losing our homes. And a lot of people don't even want to buy homes now because of all the ridiculous rigmarole. We can't buy a home right now. Until these laws change, owning property, all you're doing is agreeing to sign on a line so that you can pay all the fees and everything, and be told what you can and cannot do on your own property until the fees are so prohibitive that you cannot even afford to live there any longer.
I don't think I could ever enter into an agreement with a bank again after the experience that I went through losing my house.
Oh, no.
And so forth. In fact, now I'm in an apartment. It's actually a great situation for me. I don't need to shovel snow or cut grass or do anything. I can just focus on this stuff, the stuff that interests me as much as possible. And, when people wake up to one thing, it's like a web. You start, I started looking into this, and then, I'm reading about Agenda 21 and all the little things. 38% cancer rates even before Fukushima happened. And, there's some really great research that's being done from these independent sources. I got rid of my TV in April when I realized I wasn't going to get anything useful from mainstream media, and I didn't need that as a distraction going on. And so I thought, we'll try this for the summer. The kids aren't too happy about it, but we're focusing on much more important things now from sources that I find much more reliable than anything I ever saw on the news on TV.
Actually, real life is much more fascinating, and it starts to get to where it's hard to tell even what's real anyway, because we have been assaulted on every front imaginable, and some we cannot even fathom.
Amen, ladies. I'm jumping in the middle of this. Christina, you said you're in an apartment now, and I want to relay a story. I still own a home, and mainly the reason is I have a family member living in that home, so it's not a financial burden at this time. But the second that first of all, the situation is like most people in this country that is sitting on a mortgage. My home is upside down. It's upside down by probably about $80,000 or $90,000, and it's not upside down because of anything I did. I've made my payments, and it's not that anybody in my neighborhood did do it. It's upside down because of the decimation of this economy by these same bankers that we rail on here every night. And when it becomes a burden on me, I'm going to make the exact same decision that they did, which is a business decision, just to write it off, walk away from it. And the problem is there's so many people that are stigmatized by that. Every time you turn on one of the cable channels, you'll have somebody like Clark Howard coming on, and we talked about this in chat the other night after the program. You get somebody coming on there telling you that, debt-free this, and you got to do this. You have to stand up to your obligation. It's your moral imperative to keep making that mortgage payment. And the reality of it is the smartest thing you could do, like you said in your situation, is move into an apartment, move into something that's manageable, and then that will free you up from the burden of worrying about getting this mortgage payment made or whatever your case was, and focusing on what's truly important. Because the fact of the matter is, it isn't the people's fault in this country, for the most part. Now, that doesn't mean there isn't people who don't take advantage of the system, all that and the other thing. But this economy, the global economy, has been destroyed by the same people who are profiteering from it, from that implosion right now. I'm living in an apartment 100 miles away from where my home's at. And in fact, it's nicer than my house. And because of the economic condition we're in, it's about 50% of what my mortgage payment is on the house that I don't even live in anymore. So I think that is a story that's not
well,
only...
they want us, though, out of our homes. They want us to be dependent on their water and their electricity and their power. They don't want us to live regular lives. You know, this is all about power and control. And so before we give up the rights to our home, I think it's really imperative now, the more that I learn about this, and I've heard about so many different topics. I mean, we got Morgellons, you got foreclosure gate, you've got the vaccinations, you've got the ongoing BP Gulf massacre with Fukushima and all of it that we keep ignoring, but everything is blanketed under Agenda 21, and more in our local areas. There are things like ICLEI, and they use words like sustainable development. But it's time to start going to city council meetings. It's time to start taking DVDs, CDs, and meeting people and letting them know that until we come together and stop this, right now we do have a chance to stop Agenda 21. All of the problems that we have with our property taxes, with all of it, it's through this horrible malfeasance. And Agenda 21 is from the UN, and let's really cut it down and say what it is. And the UN is just a front for bankers. You know, the land was donated by Rockefeller, and he's one of the biggest crooks around. So we've got to start going local, and the occupied spirit is good, but we got to turn around now, starve the beast globally, start really getting serious, and take it apart locally. Go to the meetings, record the meetings, get them up on YouTubes, and especially record people, the policemen who are being horrible. If there's an Occupy movement and they're beating people up, that picture should be everywhere. His name should be everywhere, especially in his local communities, so that we can start to refuse to serve these people who are obviously so against the people.
Amen.
You know, Karen, I've tried to go the route of the police and talking to the chief of police in my area, asking them, you know, have you guys had any kind of warning or anything about the levels? You guys are outside all the time, and Labor Day weekend, no one should have been outside in Michigan. The levels were so high. There were no alerts that went out, but I thought, well, maybe the police department knew something, and so I befriended this woman who's the chief of police. She had no idea what I was talking about. I've gone to city council meetings and tried to talk to them about changing some things in our schools, having the water from the drinking fountain filtered, and changing recesses and things like that because of the potential fallout. And they all look at me like I'm crazy. So what I'm doing now is just contacting all the doctors that I used to work with, and I'm filling them in and having them look into it and talk to other physicians, and they're starting to see a correlation with some of the sickness in our areas. Rashes after rainfall, and these coughs that just don't go away, and pneumonia cases. There could be other reasons, of course, but if it's radiation related, I'm definitely taking notes and having these people look into it as well.
Yeah, and I think it's time to start doing home parties. A lot of people do that with home businesses, but I think it's important now to start meeting people who are your neighbors and inviting them over and putting on.
That's great advice, Karen.
Putting on some good things like Endgame or whatever you can put on, especially now with the Agenda 21.
Even just sitting around talking about current events, I think you find out that there's a lot of people that have their doubts, and in a lot of cases they're just afraid to say them. They're afraid to say them out loud because it goes against the mainstream, it goes against the pop culture mentality. Guys, I have Radio Crafter from the chat room, and he had some information on something that was presented to him, I believe through his union, about what occurred at Fukushima and what's being reported and not being reported about it. We have about a minute and a half left, so let me get him on here real quick. Radio Crafter, thanks for calling in. I appreciate it. Go ahead and tell us what you dropped in the chat room there.
Yeah, what I'm going to be reading from is the IEEE Spectrum, which is the International Institute of Electronic and Electrical Engineers. It's actually a professional. Association. And what I'm going to be doing is I'm going to be reading a couple of paragraphs from page 38 and page 39 from an article that they have entitled "What Really Happened at Fukushima and What It Means for Nuclear Power." And
Okay, we have about a minute left, so...
okay, I'm going to read quick. As operators surveyed the damage